The very first shot after the theme song hides one of the recurring symbols in Penguindrum. I realized that the music I was listening to and the scene I was seeing on the screen was for a band that doesn't exist, but that's not what that number means at all. Welcome to Little Orphan Anime. Today I've got a video on 3 symbols in Penguindrum that can help explain the show a little more. We'll talk about the repeated use of fans, the closing theme song, and the anime's connection to a real-life terrorist attack in Japan. I have another video on Penguindrum that helps explain the show's meaning as a whole in a relatively short amount of time. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link in the description. Thanks to everybody who responded to that one. But for now, we'll start with a symbol that's hiding at the very beginning of the show. Let's check it out. Penguindrum's director Ikuhara doesn't waste any time hitting us with symbolic content in the first episode. The series starts out with Shoma's monologue about fate, which then moves into the opening theme song. The very first shot after the theme song hides one of the recurring symbols in Penguindrum, though you have to rewatch the show to catch it. That first shot establishes the cozy and colorful domestic setting that Shoma, Kanba, and Himari have set up for themselves, but there's a subtle hint of menace. We're shown a spinning fan, which seems innocent enough, though I do like the subtle use of a vine of roses to refer to revolutionary girl Utena, the director's previous work. But Ikuhara could have chosen to show us anything to make that first impression of the show's setting, so why a fan? The answer is only revealed much later when we're shown the bleak horror of the child broiler. The child broiler is a highly metaphorical place where unwanted and unloved children are sent to be scrapped and forgotten. They are literally broken apart into shards of ice. It's a cold and broken fate that ends in oblivion. There's an interesting contradiction there, where the broiler, something that should be burning the children into fiery embers, instead coldly and methodically shreds these children's identities into glass-like icy shards. I don't know if Ikuhara meant to reference this, but it reminds me of Dante's Inferno, where hell is a domain of fire and brimstone, but the lowest layer is a cold world of ice with the devil frozen at its center. In both works, the implication is that the greatest evils are often cold and disinterested, a complete lack of love or empathy rather than a burning hatred. So what does that have to do with the fan at the beginning? Well, if you're familiar with the show, you might have already made the connection with the huge fan that slowly spins on the outer wall of the child broiler. It's one of the broiler's most iconic features, that enormous fan slowly spinning with that eerie creaking noise each time. To me, it gives the child broiler a cold, industrial feeling, as if erasing these children's identities is a completely mechanical, impersonal process. What's really interesting is that this fan from the broiler is echoed in more than just the fan at the beginning of the show. There's a close-up of the helicopter blade during Yuri's backstory as well. The blade is spinning very slowly, and it makes the exact same sound as the fan blades from the broiler. The implication is that here's another child who is unloved and destined for the broiler, even though we don't see her sent to that factory-like room. So when Ikuhara shows us a quietly humming fan as the opening shot after the theme song in episode 1, he's putting a subtle reminder that the threat of the child broiler is always there in the background. No matter how hard the Takakura siblings try to pretend that they are living in a perfect domestic fantasy, those echoes of the child broiler's fan blades are still present. And of course, the first time you see the show, or the 4th or 5th time you see the show, it's just going to look like a simple indoor fan that doesn't merit a second thought, hiding in plain sight. One of the more striking bits of imagery in the show is when the subway cars are lit up only by those swirling red and black circles that contain the number 95. I used to think that that number meant that Sanetoshi's plan was 95% complete and he was just about to win, but that's not what that number means at all. When Sanetoshi is sitting there in the midst of all those ghostly 95s, he is surrounded by the year of the Tokyo subway sarin attack, March 20th, 1995. The subway attack was a terrorist attack carried out by religious cult group Aum Shinrikyo, which is translated as Supreme Truth, or the teaching of the Supreme Truth of the universe. In 1995, the group launched a simultaneous attack of nerve gas in 5 different subway cars in Tokyo, killing 13 people and injuring over 1,000 commuters. Some estimates say as many as 6,000. A schoolgirl noticed one of the attackers when he was trying to release the gas. This shook his nerves so much that he accidentally poisoned himself after fleeing and releasing the gas elsewhere. Another cultist in charge of a different subway line happened to be a doctor and gave this man medical aid. A schoolgirl who tried to foil the attack, and a doctor who acted as both a healer and a terrorist. In other words, Momika Oginome and Sanetoshi Watase, the 2 individuals who are cross purposes in Penguindrum. The entire anime is a representation of and a reaction to the Aum Shinrikyo subway attack. Aum Shinrikyo was crazy, even by cult standards. They started out fairly innocently as a popular yoga group. The group was founded by a man who called himself Shoko Asahara. He started mixing Buddhist ideology with biblical prophecies of the end of the world, and eventually declared himself to be the Lamb of God. The group fairly quickly branched out into more than just yoga, eventually incorporating extortion and even murder as ways to control its membership. They killed at least one member who tried to leave, and when another member successfully left the group, they killed his 69-year-old brother, burned his body in an incinerator, and dumped his remains in a lake. When the police raided Aum Shinrikyo's facilities, they found explosives, military-grade rifles, gold, millions of dollars of US currency, prison cells, some still containing prisoners, and enough mass-produced sarin to potentially kill about 4 million people. I mean, who knows how much destruction this cult would have been responsible for if they hadn't been captured when they were. 13 of the group's members were given the death penalty in 2018, including the founder, Shoko Asahara. The group split into two and have remained mostly quiet, insisting that they're just a religious group now. I don't know about you, but when I find out that my cult leader is guilty of murder, extortion, and massive nerve gas attacks, that's when I start looking for a new cult. Maybe it's time to look for one that's obsessed with Legos or something. Give the old nerve gas a rest. If you want to know more about Penguindrum and the Aum Shinrikyo attack, I'll link an article in the description. But while the second symbol in this video connected to events in the real world, the third symbol doesn't connect to our world or even to the anime's world, because the things that it shows never happened at all. I love the music in Penguindrum, but perhaps my favorite use of music in the show is in the ending credits, which are all performed by Triple H, the band that Himari formed with her friends Hibari and Hikari in elementary school. I'll concentrate on the show's first ED, Dear My Future. Most of the time when this loud and hypnotic rock track starts playing, it hits right after a cliffhanger or a big reveal, and I kind of just get lost in the music and in thinking about the episode I just saw. But at one point I realized that the music I was listening to and the scene I was seeing on the screen was for a band that doesn't exist. There is no Triple H, there's only Double H, at least in the show's main timeline. When the three elementary school friends, Himari, Hibari, and Hikari, decided to try out for an idol group audition, they named their group after the first three letters of their names in English, Triple H. When the day of the big audition approached, Himari's upset that her mom was not able to find a ribbon that would match the other girls' outfits. She throws a bit of a tantrum, and her actions cause an accident which injures her mother and sends her to the hospital. This cancels Himari's trip to the audition, and afterwards the symptoms for her terminal illness start to crop up, and they keep Himari from going to school and joining her friends. Hibari and Hikari reform the group as Double H and ace the audition, securing a deal with the music producer. In the show's present, Hibari and Hikari are big stars, with their faces everywhere. Every time Himari boards the subway, she sees the mascot likenesses of her friends on the digital reader board. The only time we ever see Himari, Hibari, and Hikari perform together is during the ending credits of the show. It never happens in their world, especially not as the present-day teenagers they're shown to be in the credits. Triple H is a symbol for a perfect ideal that we desire but will never reach in this world. It represents an idealized world where everything turned out right. It's the difference between the track that the world perhaps should be on as opposed to the track that the world is currently on, where relationships and futures are twisted and distorted. That glimpse into what could have been is a glimpse into a small corner of Himari's soul, the place where this normally selfless girl indulges in her selfishness, not as a malicious or greedy feeling, but as an honest admission that this was something she really wanted, and it still hurts to this day. Watching the other girls strap Himari into her costume is bittersweet, because we get to see the realization of Himari's dreams, but only in the credits. We know that it is a lost future that she will never be able to experience herself. Penguindrum might have a reputation for being difficult, but it can also be a rewarding and really heartfelt show for those who give it a chance. You can see its influence today in shows like Revue Starlight, which I'll be posting a deep dive of in November, probably with a review of Call of the Night before that. If you know any Penguindrum secrets or have a different interpretation of the show, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. When the police raided Aum Shinrikyo's facilities, they found stuff. Gold. They found gold, and nerve gas, and military-grade rifles, and prison cells, and they found the first item, which was explosives. Oh, that was it.